Up to you on the last one. It was a lot of me talking, but this one I want to be very 50.
Yeah, I need to grab that other
Okay.
one too.
Okay, so we're back with Buddy. I decided to break up this show into two parts because I really want to focus here on the original. And as I told you, Buddy, that MIMS philosophy originally came out of futurism. It came out of the desire to see how can we, uh, I guess, leverage the interface that you're talking about to increase our A, efficiency, B, potency, and C, quality of results for improving people's lives, improving more than one person's life, right? Because obviously you can have a very selfish means that's designed only to help you, but things to bring things from the future into the now because we have problems now that need solutions now, not need solutions after we've already turned into a utopian planet. And then humans die off, and then the planet heals itself. So tell me how you see futurism, how you see these morphic fields interacting with it. Go in any direction you like, man. Love to hear you get whimsical. Let me mute myself.
All right. Well, I'm a futurist myself, and I think of myself as a futurist, self-proclaimed anyway. Obviously, here I'm saying, um, and as such, I also am an artist. And artists usually they're sketching culture or right around the edge or the cusp of the cultural horizon, like putting the ineffable, the non-verbal, something that can't be put into words, into a painting or an image. Um, Now, the natural, my natural uh, proclivity to be this way is by looking at the global picture of things. The global picture being the larger or universal picture of what it is that I'm approaching, and this type of thinking or fractal thinking got me um, started by me studying the Doherty set, uh, which is a mathematical discovery that I've come up with, which is basically the structure of fractal space-time, or the structure of how plasma flows, plasma rheology, plasma physics, and stellar formations, it's synapses, and also like quote unquote quantum geometry behaves, because it's on a scalar um, spectrum. It all scales naturally, like a plasma experiment can in the lab, and also identify and show how things actually happen on larger million-year scales, or 100,000-year scales. Um, so my thinking started happening uh, along these types of networks and systems. And then I've always been an artist, so I keep thinking about things in that aspect. Like, I really like cinematography. I I love creating music and putting uh, motion picture to it. That's one of my favorite arts. And more recently, I'm approaching the culinary arts. So I'm working and I'm thinking of the future of food, as my mind pushes me, and like we look at the times of where we're at today, and the scarcity of food, and um, the everything being held up in the supply chain for many multiple reasons. Uh, what is the future of food? And it's really obviously clear. Take what's available now and freeze dry it, and it'll be good for 25 years. Buy it while it's cheaper now, get it, preserve it, and make yourself some really good snacks that you can go hiking with and start enjoying them. I think that getting food and being able to preserve it for minimal amounts of electricity, we're talking like $75 a month, preserving all sorts of different food for the future, for your future, for who knows. It doesn't take long to create like a year of food inside these freeze dryers, a year of stock and reserve. And once you kind of get to that position, you know, you feel like you can, I mean, you can share way before that or whenever you want to share some of your supply, but you can also sell it. And it's an opportunity to start a company. Due to the cottage laws, you can sell all sorts of different yummy, nutritious meals and such. So that's like the future of some of the future of food, and it's all delicious. If you don't believe me, look at all the rave reviews on the Harvest Right freeze dryer, YouTube, anything with freeze drying, Harvest Right. They just have the hedge in the market because.
Okay, so let's kick this up a notch. Let's kick this up a notch. So in the Conquering the Solar System paper, so the entire spacers phenomenon, the acronym as it came down to me, is obviously mimsically derived, right? Obviously, there were several different currents. Aaron and I were parallel processing about. He looked at it one way, I looked at it another way. Whatever. We're both in the applied electromagnetic cosmology. I write a lot of papers. He focuses on building farm, etc. So we get ahead. We start working on spacers. Boom, arises a need to talk about the future of the space race. Out comes the Conquering the Solar System work. In that, I talk about much scaled up, industrialized design, pre-engineering systems, obviously food systems, as you're alluding to, an entire world of futurization, which includes using AI in conjunction with each other, which we talked about in the previous show or previous review. And all of these things necessitating new forms of engineering, including an entire department that's just there, an entire form of industry that's there to just make sure that there's not pollution and toxic dumping. So in that world, that which we see as a positive thing, we see it as a rational expression of continuing to search for the force and the mathematics and the ether.
In that what?
Whatever. So tell me, in that scaling system, how will you produce systems that produce food at that level without, say, giant skyscrapers full of farms on each floor? Or is that the vision that you're seeing? You know, sort of arcology, because that's what I put in the paper, arcologies from Sin City. Are you seeing these large structures with farms on every floor? And if so, how are we avoiding the dystopia of people working those like cotton workers of the old days? So lay it out for everybody. Get it wild, get fantastical, whatever you got to
do. Repeat that. Say it again. What? I don't really follow. How? What? Oh,
well,
food. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Yeah, you don't have
okay,
to do
so,
all of the spacing, right? I don't. If you want to talk about asteroid harvesting, you do whatever you like out of the Conquering Solar System. Like, it doesn't matter to me. But you were talking about food, and I wanted to kick it up. So, how are we going to utilize this technology and really take it to the next level, like next to the power of next level?
I honestly think that freeze drying food and creating like I don't know how you would push it through space, but if you could freeze dry food and and create like different densities of different layers, it would naturally create Markland convection with the different types of food ground up. If we could ionize these channels or something, or take advantage of currents that already exist, you could fly the food into the currents and have it distributed and fall out through the air like manna was delivered from heaven. That's my idea.
Okay. So talk about meeting the energy needs for the production of this. Talk about, we've already got the idea of using the rail guns to distribute throughout space, et cetera. But how are you mobilizing the infrastructure and the logistics dealing with the you brought it up. You did this to yourself. You brought up the logistics. How are we dealing with these levels of scale? And because the elite solution, we actually get rid of people. And I don't think that is exactly what Tesla had in mind when he said increasing human energy and momentum. He probably also didn't mean let's make half of the kids really stupid. I don't think that's a solution either. Apparently, that's one solution. I don't know if it's the final solution or not. But we'll see, I guess. But I don't think that that's the solution. So, how are we mobilizing this futuristic movement? What we're calling spacers.
I think you'd take one of those tornado vortexes that grind food. You'd throw the food directly into it. Create some sort of a tornadic wind machine that would do like an inverse tornado and pull that shit directly through, tie it directly to like a Birkeland current, and you'd have the turbine that's constantly grinding the food, or that wind tunnel tornado thing. So basically, it'd be vortex technology, vortex, connecting with another vortex.
So are you in the place of conjecture, sort of like where Lex Friedman's father was, which Mr. Friedman, Dr. Friedman, is a high energy plasma physicist. I guess he's probably retired by now. But are you of the conjecture that we should be manufacturing these organic constituents, which inevitably become part of our nutritional supply? Or are you saying that we should stick to using nature's method? Because the problem I have is, yeah, you can have the tilless farming and you can grow trees just for the sake of making the mulches that create the soils. And we can make the soil thicker, but the problem is we're going to run out of carbon dioxide at that rate. Now, until we get the carbon train going, where we're transferring carbon out of the way overly dense atmosphere of Venus over to Mars and Earth and the Moon, what are we going to do? Where are we going to get the carbon for all this extra soil that we need for producing all of these scaled, expansion packs, for lack of a better term, that we're going to then railgun off to Mars to lay there in freeze dried state, waiting for humans to show up and colonize. So, where are the physical atomic constituents coming in your scheme? Is it a plasma, solar, wind kind of thing? We're going to create them in lab, or are we going to grow them and create massive farms that are specifically there to generate soils? How are we achieving this caloric expansion?
Yeah, that's a great question. I myself haven't thought that far into the idea itself. All I know is that it's vortex based, most likely, and that's how you draw it into a Birkeland current, which creates the Markland convection. You could have
Right.
steak, eggs, cheese, all sorts of different things through different programmed and not even programmed wind tunnels. As
Is
long
this
as the end,
a metaphorical vortex, like an economic model? I mean, you're obvious. I don't think the audience should envision just a giant tornado slinging food around. So, what do you mean exactly?
um, I literally mean it would break down into micronutrients and it would become uh, galactic windstorms, and we would harness it on the solar, probably use the solar current to push it from planet to planet as we get CME.
Oh, okay. So you're talking about using the Birkeland superweb itself to transfer food. Wow, that is not covered at all in the concrete and the solar system. So we did cover, railgun launching. So you're saying that we can set up a stream to where over 1,000. So it is called a polyphase superweb. So all I covered in the was power and communications transfer. You're talking about a whole new phase to use the Birkeland superweb. So the audience needs to probably catch up with us. So in the past, on the electric view, I guess is when we first started talking about this. I brought up the Birkeland polyphase superweb, talked about using Birkeland currents to transfer what it was essentially multi-phase power and some communication. Now, you, being the genius you are, you've now thought of transferring organic molecules, atomic material, and it sounds like even physical foods along this current, creating a cosmic mycelium web that then colonies just show up wherever they show up, or maybe even aliens. Maybe they pop in and they're like, "Hey, look at these guys! They've got a food train going."
Yep.
And then this goes everywhere. And then you could just pick it up and start. It can, it sounds like some kind of machine is like swirling this up and then making little cubes of food or something. Is the audience and myself getting this picture correct?
Yeah, yeah. Well, the machine's already developed. See, I mean, we already have the technology to do this. We just need to like
We
go
have the
home with it
technology.
already.
I
You
love it.
know.
$6 million
Uh,
man. We have the technology.
uh,
Tell us how does this technology work? What do you? I don't know if
okay.
you know
Well,
this blending. I don't even have a blender, so
we, we've actually gone through the technology on the geometric view and the electric view in prior podcasts that we've had together. Um,
mm-hmm.
but
Well, the audience doesn't know that.
this gentleman created Tornado in a Can. I think is the name of the video. Um, I don't know if you can go online or not or whatever, but
Well, we can link it in the description.
yeah, this guy, he created no moving parts. It can shred anything into powder. You throw rock in there, you throw brick in there, you throw food in there, you throw egg in there, dry powder. It comes out dry powder on the other end. No moving parts, just a wind tunnel vortex. And yeah, so you have these stationed at certain places where um, there has to be there has to be there has to be ways where you could actually probably um, start experimenting with this on the earth, like we've been experimenting with playing with the weather by distributing gases and aluminum and different metals. We could probably start experimenting with how how the food would reconvene on a planet in an atmosphere by doing experiments by launching some of this powdered food into space to see what it turns into, and if it does turn into anything and fall on the poles of the planet or something and disperse in different places, because the sand is always doing this. all over the earth, and smoke is always doing this, and volcanoes are always doing this, and distributing these dusts across the earth. So you could experiment to start seeing with what would happen with large scale distribution of the dust onto the earth, but it would act different on the planets that we're trying to colonize. It might turn into like perfectly formed biscuits. Like, what if it comes out on the other end and we could program it to actually like smart meat, where the meat would actually restructure on the other end of the tube, and smart wheat, where the seeds would actually start planting. I don't know, smart seeds that we could.
Right. So this is another area you and Aaron would be good to go on, because I've asked him before, like, what spacer papers are you prepared to do first? Because his interests are very broad. He has his own ion drive, etc. As you know, stage one consists of us just trying to establish a reasonable, ETB, an extraterrestrial base on the moon, a real one too, not like we go there and we hang out in the sun and then get in a rocket and fly off, but an actual base. So I would think that in the phase one of stage one and phase two would be definitely the time when we should perfect the technologies that you're talking about and begin testing them, constantly. How are we going to overcome the political difficulties of using these railgun launching systems with all these, and these corporations? They get away with everything, right? They just throw a satellite up there in space, and then it breaks down. They don't care. It could just like crash into the International Space Station, or come crashing into it. There's no ramification. Plus, it's a waste of mineral and atomic material. So, how are we going to get to the stage that you're talking about, where we're able to logistically move these food materials to this moon base, and then be able to launch it around when we have all this stuff ahead of us? What is your do you have a sense, based on futurism, of an engineering path that will enable us to overcome the vast amount of stupid in the way, all of the anti-rationalists that are going about, or just downright playing politics and lobbying? How are we going to overcome? Because you are not underwear, and I'm not a super wealthy guy. I mean, I don't have tons of fiscal currency to fight such a battle. So how do we go about bringing this future into the now? What is the, aside from science fiction and obviously STEM, all the technology, engineering, etc. What is the MIMSical gap that we are missing, that I guess used to exist in the 1800s when they industrialized? What is it? What is it that is missing that needs to be brought back? What do you think?
I think that um, I think that the sorry, I'm designing right now at the exact same time as that we're talking about this conversation. um, and I'm looking at this future product that I actually have. It's the only one of the only patents that I have, and I'm excited because I'm actually finally pushing it this year. But when could this be done? You're asking what time scale of when this can be done?
Well, no, I mean, obviously, we could do nothing as visioneers and just wait for nature to allow it to happen, and we might be sitting here while the Great Pyramid turns into dust. Um, I would assume that aside from the responsibility of knowledge comes the responsibility of taking action. How do we visioneers and engineers who want to see this stuff come deal with the physical limitations that we have, the currency limitations, the political bickering? You know, when they first launched the space program, you know, NASA got up to like over 20% of the federal budget. Now it's scaled way back. They're going to let the International Space Station burn up. So the momentum and the position seems to have shifted away from things. But in the 1800s, it didn't seem like they had that hard a time in advancing the species. So what is it that's missing, um, mimsically speaking? How do we utilize the morphic fields to generate better MIMS that bring crystal clear into our minds how important survivability is, and balance with nature, you know, uh, so that people stop thinking, oh, it's just another interesting thing. Like, oh, the manna shrimp is just another interesting thing. It's like, well, cavitation is actually kind of important. Now, telling people why it's important, that's a little bit more difficult.
Right.
So what do we actually do uh, to enable futurism to become more important than all this pastism? Which I get into retro synthwave as much as anybody, or I get into you know, old '80s dystopia movies or things like that. But realistically, right, the future is what's coming. The past is what's gone. So how do we get ahead of without waiting to see? Oh, well, you know, are we going to go through a worldwide dust bowl or not? You know, what do you think? What I mean, just conjecture, just anything. There's no wrong answers.
I think that the uh, NASA is already searching for answers from us to feed the future um, of people,
Well,
and
yeah. Don't get me
they
going about the human flesh industry, buddy. So give me positive ideas.
uh, no, they want to know how to feed the future astronauts, and there's a new um, $1 million contest to come up with an idea to feed the future astronauts, because whether we like it or not, they're going to act like we're going to Mars, and they're going to act like we got on Mars, and we're going to have to act like we have a food system, and we're going to have to act like they actually did this a long time ago too, because that's what they said they did a long time ago. Um, uh, what's that lady's name? Uh, I can't remember the lady's name, but she said that we have a base on Mars and we have a base on the moon. And Maria Orsic, and she said this. And now the government came out last year, the United States and Israel government came out last year and said that we have a base on Mars and we have a base on the moon. And she claimed that she was going to go and colonize that that space, and that they had already and that's like, I don't know if they have a description of her death, because I think that they claim that she went on a spaceship. And this is the lady who helped start who brought Hitler into power. Maria Orsic, you know, the leader of the one of the ladies of the leaders of the Thule Society. She, you know, and it's like, okay, our government, United States government, saying the same thing as she said, and that was a long time ago. You know, what's really going on here? What's really going on? So, um, who knows? I think
Yeah,
it's all going to be rumors of wars and rumors of we've been to Jupiter and rumors of we've been here and rumors of who really knows.
yeah. I mean, imagine if the spacer movement, which could be as short as 2,000 years to really completely terraform Venus and Mars, and even some of the Jovian moons. Imagine if that is now extended out by another few thousand years, because half of that time was spent pretending that we did all that stuff, as a species together, not a few elites did it because they had the access to the technology, which seems to be what they think is acceptable. It would be rather pathetic because then when time comes, when the asteroid is headed right to Earth, you're not ready.
Well,
Your college your pants.
they check this out. They could easily say that they could fake AI and easily say that AI is real and break everything down also and blame it on AI.
Right, and it's just
I
people.
mean, that's that easy. It's that easy. Oh my gosh, we created it. Boom, we had a meltdown.
You're right.
Just because they wanted to pull the plug. Well, the first time we created AI, it brought down the stock market and brought down the world. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, I don't think that the physical the limitations are in the p power or in the force, the f power. I don't think that that's where the limitations are, and I think that the ether, the a power, always has potential. Like there's not really a shortage there. So the real issue is how do we apply our consciousness? How much is it aligned to the L power, the Lord, and so that we can ourselves be in tune with the entire God network, right? Because if right now we've got people worshiping mathematics instead of realizing that it's a tool to understand something greater, and that's not even the worst of what's going on. You know, that's not even close to the worst of what's going on. So I don't think that STEM itself has any barriers to rapid development, but at the present rate, the present burn rate, so to speak, of the species, I am concerned that it will take 10,000 years to finish the terraform job, and in that 10,000 years, chances are pretty good that there would be some type of a CME event or an asteroid or Yellowstone goes off or whatever. Now maybe that's what it takes. Maybe Yellowstone goes off or Lake Victoria, explodes, or Vesuvius goes mega VAI 9, and then that's the only thing that causes people to take this so-called game very seriously. Right now, it seems like people really think that the Boxing Day tsunami is the upper end, and I'm sitting there going, dude, that is a small end, and that 240,000 people is nothing to see that. What? So at any rate, back to the futurization. So we have these sapphire like chambers. They're going to build more, right? They're not going to be able to keep it under wraps anymore. I don't. So they start building this stuff, and they start getting these organic materials. Maybe Dartmouth College even does what they said they were going to do. They get the funding. They prove the counter space exists, or the void energy, whatever you want to call it, and it starts bubbling into the ether. They finally, scientifically, let's say best case scenario, we overthrow the Fauci's and Michael Shermer's of the world, and they admit that the ether exists within 20 years because several independent, peer-reviewed vertical interferometer experiments confirm the ether does exist. And we're rocking and rolling. We even maybe master fusion. Okay, so the technology and science is already on our side. We start thinking engineering scale and producing the AI daisy chains. Do people really want to leave Earth? Like, do they really want to? Do they really want anything other than, they go to work, they eat, microwave dinners, and on the weekends they either build something or they go see a movie or whatever. I mean, are humans fundamentally stuck between I don't want to be a primitive human, but I don't want to be an astronaut?
I hope not.
Well, I have to tell you, I'm not so sure. I think you and I might be freaks, my friend. So,
yeah, most people
so
don't care most people don't care what I have to say and roll their eyes.
Right. So, are we fundamentally? Are we in a Terence McKenna situation or a Rupert Sheldrake situation? And if so, how do we evolve those consciousnesses? And do we have to await some sort of window, like Terence McKenna says, that there will be, these repeating, standing waves of time and events? Are we destined to watch people, all the moochers, be satisfied with the elite telling them that occasionally they have to go off to march themselves into genocide? It's a bit maddening if you really think about it, because my conjecture is if you got a child early enough, no matter what their proclivities are, even if they're a bit dim-witted, that you could make them interested in the force, right? You could give it to them. And my evidence of that is the success of movies like Star Wars, Avengers Endgame. You know, when Thor shows up, people go crazy. So we were talking about futurizing religion. Is that the key? Is it really a religious issue, a spiritual and religious issue?
I think everything comes down to a religious and spiritual issue in my philosophy.
Okay, so you don't mean because of the archetypes, or do you mean that the archetypes exist because the force is legitimate and real and it's a microcosm?
I think that the entirety of the thing is alive and keeps us in check through checks and balance systems like karma.
So our whimsical futurization is sort of Mario hitting his head on an invisible brick, and then it turns into a coin giver until it turns into a stone. What 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 is your conjecture that we're able to futurize because the system is rewarding specific individuals like Tesla's and other inventors, Edison, etc.? That would be a little bit depressing, but also kind of makes sense, like in a sort of you have to pay to play kind of way.
I think we're able to futurize because that's what we're always doing is being aware of death, certain that there are dangers, and focusing on I can't remember what his name is. I'll come up with it in a second here, but
okay. But are you then asserting that there's a certain whimsical average rate, like that? Like most people are, well, obviously most people are relying on MIMS that they grew up with, right? And they've been told are safe and don't question anything else. Just do these set of MIMS, like go to school, get a job, and grow old, have a family, go to church on Sunday, and you'll be fine. And get jabbed with the coof vaccine. Uh, so most people are doing that, but you're suggesting that also because people are creative, that there's an average uh, whimsical rate that people are improving themselves and improving life. Now, so let me ask you then: can that be accelerated? Is that safe to accelerate? Can everyone accelerate it? And is it wise to accelerate it, both individually and societally?
Yeah, I think it's wise to accelerate it.
Can everyone accelerate it, or is this like just people that are using the scientific method? Like, what do you the prayer thing? Like,
I guess I don't follow exactly to size. Is it good for everything to have a futuristic consciousness and an idea of its mortality? I think futurism and mortality go together.
Yeah, that is a good question because as far as we know, no other species really is aware of its mortality except for us. There is a funny onion where
yet they prepare. Yet they prepare.
Yeah, they do prepare.
And we observe them preparing.
Yeah.
And we observe them compassionate and we observe them caring, and there's all these attributes that we attribute to sentience, and then all of a sudden only octopi and squid are sentient now? If you heard about that. Now you can't eat those creatures. And I think it's in the UK, on the coast of the UK.
Certainly I don't mind eating them, I'll tell you that. If somebody tells me it's conscious, I'm going, well, like, all the more I want the essence now. I draw the line at cannibalism. So here's the thing. I'm not so sure that most people are able to handle an accelerated average. I think that it's a logarithmic curve. I think that people like Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla are exceptional, and even Marconi. I don't think that the average person is able to mimsically do more. From what I've seen, even some of the more brighter people, they might spend 20, 30 years of the prime of their life working on the same one thing in their garage, and just like kind of agonizing over whether or not this is the correct thing or if it's going to take them to the top. Is it going to make them rich, famous, successful, blah blah blah. And so when I look at the situation, I wonder how much of the species is currently engaging in an acceleration program like that. Um, is it possible to? I think there are places also that maybe they're ready for massive acceleration, and something's holding the area back. Africa would be my main conjecture. I think South America, parts of South America, would be another conjecture. Some of those places they had a period of that, and they unfortunately adapted the wrong systems that came out of the European colonial. Like Costa Rica has a huge issue. Of course, it's supposed to be this incredibly biodiverse place, and then they put in all these plantations. Plantations are a great MIMS for colonials because hey, we get to export all of your nutrients and product back to our country. But it's become a bad system for Costa Rica itself, and it's creating all this destructive stuff. It's not climate change; it's just destruction of the land and the species. So they have issues with the monkeys. There's not enough food for the monkeys to eat, and so or the sloths. So the question I would pose is like, if we were to mimsically accelerate places like Africa and South America, and we were to do it without trying to do something destructive. I saw somebody post here on Discord that France is going to build 14 nuclear plants. And my immediate thought is, are they thorium? Because if they're not, it's just a repetition of the same problem as the Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island. If it starts to have a problem, everybody's blood will run cold, right? It's not worth the downside, like I talked about in the last episode. The risk slope on the opposite side of the reward slope is so severe. I'm not sure it's worth it. And so if we were to drastically alter education to include the entire big G, ether, force, physics, numbers, and God, and we all got juiced in together. Everybody got interested in cryptocurrency together. Uh, is it really sustainable? I'm not so sure that species are built that way, or that the human species is built that way. I think that there may be some amount of exceptionalism that's always rooted in the rugged individual. And when I think about Thomas Edison, if he had been born 200 years earlier, they would have lobotomized him or jailed him for even doing 100 trials, let alone 1,000 trials trying to find the light bulb. And then you think about the guy who made the first hot air balloon. He obviously couldn't wait for powered flight. I mean, he would have been a complete nutter, according to the people in the 1600s. It would be insane. They might have got away with it because it was a Renaissance, but like, definitely the year 1000, they would have thought that he was a witch and burned him. So
Right.
maybe maybe one of the big things that the MIMS philosophy needs to do is determine that MIMS almost burn rate or whatever, and see how can we accelerate. I know that we haven't studied the changes on a big level. We haven't put billions of dollars into the changes. I think we probably put hundreds of millions of dollars into weather predicting, and it's doing pretty well. It let me down Thursday before last. I closed my clinic because it said it was going to ice storm here. No ice at all. Like, I lost quite a bit of money by not having my clinic open. But generally there was bad weather, right? So who knows if it saved lives? The point being, though, we haven't really spent tons of money on the changes. uh, we have a book from 3,000 plus years ago called the Book of Changes. And I can't think of anything else except for more and more derivative works about that. There was one advancement. A guy tied the 64 changes to the 64 codons of DNA, and that I reckon was a big improvement in the study. But I don't know that anybody's tied that to the antenna DNA hypothesis, which is gaining ground right now. There are studies about the antenna DNA. So I just wonder, mimsically, what if we study the wrong stuff at the right time and the right stuff at the wrong time? Do you get what I'm saying? You get where I'm going with that?
Yeah.
How do we improve that? How do we visionaries and responsible scientists, and how do we make that a better transition for this species and for the planet, obviously, and the
I,
children.
I mean, it's really, I don't know. It's so organic the way that things come up and propagate. Like, we came up with canned food before we had the can opener. So, I mean, it's hard to really kind of
Are you
push
kidding me? I didn't know that.
yeah, we came up with canned food before the can opener. So it's like we did that.
Genius.
We just do this shit, and then we're like, well, someone else will figure it out, right? Like
That's really genius. How'd they get the cans open? How'd they get the cans open?
I don't know.
They must have cracked at it like a bunch of cavemen, or drop it like pros.
With knives. I mean, that's why you see hobos, like with knives and shit. Like back
Sure.
in the day, fuck, they used to open that shit up with knives.
Stabbing themselves in the hand and like, yeah, genius. Oh my god.
Hell, you
Yes.
just roll that tin back. Don't cut your fingers.
You know what? If we don't have a history that's sort of like the one in the Idiocracy movie where they go in the dinosaurs or Hitler, um, the AI, if it has factual events, will look back and go, boy, these people really did not understand how to develop. um,
Oh, I have
so
this recurring thought every time I do nitrous, and it's that we are so dumb, we are so stupid. Like I see us at start as a symphony of the forest, and as I come back into my waking state out of these nitrous trips, and I'm like, I completely see the reworking and the inner working of humanity. And I'm like, man, we're just infants. We're such babies, It's
that's true.
crazy.
It really is, and that is one of the central conjectures of the paper I just linked you, which is the Google Doc version of the Conquering the Solar System. Hopefully, you get a chance to just at least skim through. It's very long, so it's like 182 pages. I don't expect you to read the whole thing, but you know, the table of contents might help you to find things to enjoy. But that by the whole purpose of going into space and conquering the solar system is to grow ourselves up, because
Excuse me.
at the at the
Pardon me.
at the present rate of behavior, I don't think that we'll mature until we finally finished terraforming, uh, even up through Jupiter, which I think was stage what it's like stage 5, I think. Okay, and I think that in between then now and there, we're going to have interruptions in our terraforming process due to politics. I think that we're going to have port cities that have wars with each other over logistics issues that could be solved with just mere chronological facts until mankind goes, okay, so it's not about my individual ego, and it's not about trying to make everyone equal. It's about a harmonious exchange of energy, and that includes nutrients, and it includes fuel, it includes energy, it includes money, and that we're going to struggle through that. Then we're going to have another struggle. My conjecture in that paper is that we're going to have another struggle when we finish with Saturn, because then we will have conquered all the bad boys. We'll have conquered Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, and then it'll be really hard for us to want to finish. But when we finally do, when we finally go to stages 7, 8, 9, and 10, and really start preparing for leaving the solar system to go out and go establish a gate for passing through, actually going to Proxima Centauri, that is when we will truly start to mature. That right now we are not even teenagers. We are totally infantile in our approach to space, and that it's going to take some time for us to treat space as a serious, adventure. Um, and that we're going to have to Oregon Trail it at first, and it's going to be rough. It's going to be really rough. Human spirit, though,
Yeah,
maybe it'll improve our morale. Maybe people will start to treat each other better, even if in 150 years, some truck hauler is shooting at another truck hauler because they cut each other off in space. I think it will be a drastic improvement over where we're at now. And that's not a political statement. I'm just saying about human nature. Um, okay.
yeah,
All right. So
yeah.
we have these morphic fields. Okay. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, you're identifying for our select audience, anyone who's still listening at this point. Maybe they're like, oh, I'm not high enough. But so you've identified some morphic fields and the mathematical basis for this whimsical experience that we're constantly going through. And I agree with that. We're constantly going through it. The average rate might be different for various people. So where do we go from here? Do we do what Nick does and build machine learning programs? All of us got to build machine learning programs and start to do better in that way. I mean, do we just turn a blind eye to the rampant forest destruction that's happening in South America? I mean, realistically, can we abandon old MIMS to just jump on new ones? I like camping. You know what I mean? I like boating. I like shooting guns. I don't hunt, but I like eating hamburgers, man. And what do we do? What's right? What's good? What's moral?
Obviously, I mean, it's hard for us to even make our own moral decisions. But what's right, what's good and moral, that's why people start religions constantly.
It's back to the same. It's back to the MIMS 3.0 religion. So you remember the presentation I did a long time ago on the origins of religions, which based on the paper, in which I discussed that religion was designed to keep us from destroying ourselves, because we had a pseudo religion before that. We had spiritual practices and we had these gods that were in the sky, and we observed and we were like, oh, it moved this way, so that means we should do this, which is not a real religion. But then we developed a real religion. Do you think that is a positive whimsical approach, or do you think that it's too superstitious to be rewarded long term by the universe? Because religion is very stable compared to, say, governments and businesses. I mean, religion is very stable. It can last thousands of years, even though it slowly changes. Do you think that is a good thing that the universe will reward us for, or do you think that it's going to destroy us because of the idealism and the dogma and all the negative aspects, the terrorism, that kind of thing?
I think religion's like a stabilizer, a long-term stabilizer. I don't think it's going to destroy us. I tend to be pretty optimistic with many prevailing religions in India. They're so ancient. People have been doing the same weird mantras, and I say weird in a good way, because it's different, and that's good.
Yeah, but also they have half of their children are exposed to fecal oral contamination. So there is, and then they still have the caste system. I mean, they have people who live as untouchables. Legally, they're not, but socially, structurally, I mean, there's a strong belief over there still in that caste setup. I mean, that's not going to increase human momentum and energy, in my opinion. And I also read an article, and I cited it, that very factually talked about the image of Brahma and Brahmins in general, and it was pretty, what would you say, not kid friendly stuff. You know what I mean? So, where do we draw the line between these old ways of thinking? I don't think anybody who's listening to this cast believes that we should be stoning, homosexuals or something like that. So, where do we draw the line between promotion of what's healthy for families and society, and also not being so ultra conservative that we don't make any progress? How do we engineer that? Or do we just trust in the Lord and this underlying morphic field of consciousness that's mediated by the ether? And the fact that we'll just have very few, mostly men, who are advancing in engineering and inventions in STEM. And it's a hard question if you really stop and think about it. Look at how long it took the church to finally admit Galileo was correct. Even the whole scientific world, everybody had gone on. Finally, in the late 20th century, they're like, "Oh yeah, Galileo, he was right." So I reckon that there might be some kind of rapid emergence after a crash of faith. There might be a rapid emergence of some kind of new and potentially dangerous or potentially extremely beneficial religion. I think that in this way, L. Ron Hubbard was sort of on the money, but in his case, he was literally about the money. But he's not necessarily missing the market there. That there will be more and more people who are looking for something real. We might be able to provide that for them, but also, we don't want to go down the same route as these corrupt preachers. So the issue for me is what is right in this case. I mean, is holiness actually a frequency, and is morality really just a simulation of that state, which is a conjecture I make in the paper. I don't know if you have any thoughts on
that. Yeah, I mean, holiness might be a frequency. Ultimately an action, and but it takes so much sanctification to try to reach holiness, and still we don't even reach piety.
So do you think it's a single frequency, a Dirac vector, or do you think that it's a group of resonant frequencies, that it's okay as long as you pick one of the 5 phase groups, like, for example, Buddhism and various Vedic systems, or Sino-based systems, or Aboriginal-based systems, or Judeo-Christian-based systems, so long as you do that, or Druidic-based, anything similar to Druidism, that it doesn't matter which of those you come to, so long as you resonate inside of those frequencies, that you are approaching holiness.
Yeah, you're approaching the source one way or another, and
okay,
the source is telling people to do many different things, and God is both good. God is both created the dark side and the good side, as it says in the Bible. And so God doesn't tempt people to do bad things, so that comes from a different spot than the source. So if people think they're tapped in and God is telling them to do unlawful, wrong things, then they're listening to demonic source or spirit or an entity.
Right. They're listening to the identity which exists to establish the anti-identity, which is it's polar complete, right? It has to be there. Some people think that the Lord specifically means the Son of Heaven. Of course, mytho-historically, we know that's not true. Like, we know that there are multiple societies that have had the Lord, as well as a creator God, and it is particular proclivity in Judeo-Christianity to tie the two together. That is not the proclivity in, say, Buddhism. Right, the Son of Heaven is not literally the creator God, historically. In the Big G network, they're all tied together through flow, and the Lord is lined up over God, so that if you are, like say Christian, you're able to link them directly together via the alignment pole, which would fulfill the cosmic pole motif that is apparently ingrained in all of our brains. It shows up even in the Star Wars Rogue One. I guess the question I would have is, let's assume that there is a Son of Heaven. Okay, this is my faith, so I can do this. If I assume that there is a Son of Heaven, how much whimsical expression is he interested in us doing, versus how much are we supposed to just sit back and just kind of let it all come to us? This has been a question among, let's say, Chinese studies for a while, because if Wu Wei, or what in the Gita is called the yoga of action, right? If this was the way, then how is it that Taoism came to become third fiddle in China, and it is no major part of running their society right now? It has been incapable of staying relevant long term, and that, I reckon, is a huge problem as to why what's going on over there is going on. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. Like, what does Source want us to do as far as frequency wise and approaching holiness? Do we get moral? I mean, do we just get more moral? It just seems like people are weaponizing morality a lot. I don't know if that works. What do you think?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, usually the people who come off as holy are oftentimes not holy, or
Right.
angels in disguise of light, darkness, dark angels in disguise of light. So
Okay.
it's really hard to tell. I mean, the people who say that they are holier than thou, the
Often end up
people,
being the biggest monsters, right?
yeah, the people that are the worst are the people who say that they're the best and we believe are the best.
Yeah. Why do people
So,
keep falling for that old gag? Isn't it amazing every time it happens?
because it's like, if you're good, you shouldn't have to constantly tell people how good you are. It should just be, oh, well, that's a good person. Like, naturally, people can
Yeah.
recognize it.
Yeah, but then they get sold down a pack of rivers. And some people think it's always about money, that they've always been sold money. I don't think that's always true. I think that they sell themselves in lots of ways, and that always bothers me, because they're able to sell ideologies that are clearly and blatantly dangerous, like Marx, okay, or Mao. And these ideologies are very obviously flawed, but for some reason, people buy into them, and then they buy into them, and monsters are born. Hitler's Mein Kampf, his ideas in that, and the whole entire idea of the final solution. We still struggle with anti-Semitism today. I mean, it's still an issue, and I pointed out to people, if that worked, it wouldn't have been such a problem already. We've already seen that solution tried. It didn't work. So why do people persist in these bad ideas? It isn't clear to me, and it isn't clear to me that humans are, because we have wiring for discrimination, confirmation bias. We know about Dunning-Kruger now, and obviously a large number of people exist living in cognitive dissonance. They just really can't avoid it. They're complaining about capitalism while typing on a laptop in a corporate lobby. because these things are biologically inherent, are we really capable of futurizing at the accelerated rate that I'm talking about? Or are we going to end up just like Egypt's Atlantis, you know, an old stone power plant that nobody knows is a power plant except for a handful of people who are initiates. And let's be honest, it ain't the Illuminati who are the initiates, the engineers. You know, it's Chris Dunn and all of us in the PIM cosmology. We're the ones that are the real initiates. These Masons, they don't know. They don't know. I've not seen any evidence that the current Masons of today have any idea about the Giza power plant. So, you know, is that the destiny? You know, are we just going to be stuck on this planet?
I think that it's going to be more dynamic in a fun way that we're not used to yet.
Oh, you mean it's more playful, or do you mean it's more interesting? What do you
mean? Like there's a lot of ways to cure depression, and the world is depressed right now. So approaching the world like it's a game, and you have to cure depression, and that's your goal. I think there could be some fun things going on with that.
You know, Kentucky is full of hikes and stuff, and yet it's one of the most obese places. I mean, it's one of the most geologically diverse things and one of the most obese places. And I haven't figured out yet, like, I'm like, okay, all these people are depressed. And all the studies show that you should get out and exercise, and that your depression is related to you being overweight and your hormone changes. But good luck convincing people that they should make these changes. But okay, so you have this idea that the system will advance us. You know, the beatings will stop when the morale improves, and the morale improving means looking at it differently. Sounds like. How do we futurize from here to there? What's the job? If the people listening are visionaries, and you gave them an assignment, Buddy, the teacher gives them an assignment, what would you say for them to get whimsical? Then the same way that you've been whimsical, you know, all of your art and your mathematics and your creations all coming together, because you are one of the most whimsical people I
know. Thank you.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
I think people. I think there's a lot of fun things that we're gonna find when we all start playing not only this game, but a lot when we start actually remembering how much fun it is to play. Like, okay, for example, there's Sudoku, there's Jeopardy, there's a lot of things that older people are into because it takes an aged character to get into these kinds of things. And also, like, brain games are good for aging people. So I think slowly but surely we're going to I know for sure, because I love life so much, I can help people experience life in a more fulfilling manner. And
yeah, I feel that way. Although I tell people
don't be crazy with me. Yeah, I feel like people are going to need help, and there's going to be more and more depressed people because there's only going to be more and more problems and misery with. If you look at other aging cultures that don't have youth to take care of them, it's just a bunch of old people, and that's where we're headed.
Well, maybe that's part of the turnover. I don't know. I don't have all the answers, so why ask?
We don't have enough. Go ahead.
No, that's it. That's the whole statement. That's why I ask so many questions. I don't have all the answers.
Maybe you have, but I like to think about them and approach them.
Yeah, I don't know why. You know, you and I are switched on people, And Aaron Harden's a switched on person. Even Ashcroft, he's a switched on person. Nick, it seems to me that people who get connected to the Force are the ones who get switched on. They get charged up. Would you say that that's an accurate conjecture? Do you think that maybe that's the solution, is just people try to get charged up?
I tend to see a lot of charged up people that are involved in martial arts.
Okay, yeah, and that would certainly move their chi, right? They'd get out of their funk. Yeah, it would be helpful at least.
So I'd say definitely. People that are interested in longevity of their lives are interested a lot of the time in martial arts because they want to prolong their life if they get into a fight or need to protect someone or
there you go,
or whatever.
A so to the K, man.
Yeah, right. Dialing directly into the source. You wanna project your life, protect your life. So
yeah, therefore you need the ability to take one if you need to.
Yep, and fight for your own.
Fight for what you believe in. Fight for your health, your happiness. Fight for your property. Fight for your rights themselves. No, I completely agree there.
They don't want us to fight for our property anymore.
No, they think that they'll just give it up. Just all give it up. Of course, they're insane. They're pathologically insane and provably tied to the human flesh industry. So, if people don't realize that this stuff all goes back to a false worship of Baal, from an age when the people mistakenly thought that you needed to sacrifice hearts because Venus came out of Saturn, and you needed to eat flesh because Jupiter occasionally would run into one of Saturn's satellites. Then they don't understand what the situation is here. That there is a serious and a seriously deluded group of people who are actively engaged in an entire human flesh network, and they believe that their monetary power is tied to the chemical state that they get when they consume, and it's pretty messed up. So, we have to be cognizant of that and deal with it. I don't think it's something that should override our lives, and we should spend our time, unless you happen to work for the FBI or something. In which case, I think you should do your freaking job. I always like to talk to any agents that might be listening, thinking, "Oh, this guy's a right-wing nutball." Wrong, but I do think you should do your job, and you should stop the evil cabal. Well, I think that we've covered a lot of ground. I'd like to, in the next time that we get pretty whimsical, we don't get bogged down in the cosmology itself, which is fine. I love talking about the cosmology and the fundamental sciences. I think you do too. But the next time we do get whimsical, I would definitely like to focus on some of the specific topics of the spacer movement. And if you have anything like, in the direction of conquering the solar system, feel free to bring it up. You already covered something that wasn't in my paper, a use for the Birkeland polyphase superweb I had never thought of. I think it's so genius that, I think it should be typed up, but I don't know. I'll leave that to you. It's your idea. And I do want to thank you for your time. I got to run and educate these children. They've started to turn into zombies. But I certainly enjoyed it. We got 2 great episodes out of this. I guess you'll probably want to put it up on yours. I don't know, but
hopefully, yeah.
I think we might be able to get together Sunday night. I don't know what's happening with Sunday night, but I'll try and do another podcast soon. Stop record.